When you get started on a React Native project, building out all the components required for your application may be daunting and time-consuming. NativeBase saves you a lot of this initial setup and, like Bootstrap and Foundation for Web, provides a solid library of components ready to use across iOS and Android. In this video, we'll introduce you to this library, the documentation, and where to go in order to find help when you are stuck. So open up your browser and let's get started. First thing you need to do is go to nativebase.io. And then on this page, sometimes the image that I want to show you is not there. So click on the arrow if you don't see two blocks of code like this. And basically the reason why I want to show you that is I want to show you the difference in between using NativeBase and not using it. So for example, for this click me button, if you would use NativeBase, you would simply have to copy and paste the code for the component button. If you would write it on your own, then you would need to basically create a touchable opacity style button and then style it in a different block of code. So this is one of the main reasons, and most of the components that you would need are built into NativeBase. The second benefit of using NativeBase is to go to the kitchen sink, and you'll understand why in a second. Just click check it out right now. And then once you get to that page, scroll down, you'll see examples of all the components for iOS and then Android. If you continue scrolling, you'll see all the components into the specific environments that they're related to. For example, if you go to this particular block of code for a block button, you have the same for Android, and then you click on it, and it's going to bring you to the actual code. So as you scroll down, you'll see that first and foremost, we have the same typical code for React. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that the code for the button is right there. So if you take a look at, for example, the first one, it's basically the primary one here. And if you look, the second one is the button block success and so on and so forth. So if you need specific buttons, then you copy and paste the specific buttons that you would need. Same thing for Android. You scroll down, and it's primarily the same code anyways. So basically, once you found the component that you need, you copy and paste it into your own project. And that's the purpose of the kitchen sink. It's basically to give you examples of code for each of the components that they built. Let's take another one. So for example, the card component. Let's click on it. And then scroll down, and all the code that you need usually is below content pattern. So for example, for the card component, you would need this one here. And scroll all the way down to card. So this would be your card component altogether. And this is the code that you will need to copy and paste into your project to make this specific card in iOS and this specific card in Android. So this is the kitchen sink. If we go back to the main page, the next thing I want to show you is obviously the docs. The docs is like any other libraries, the main place you need to go to understand how to install, how to set up your library into a project, and obviously to get more examples of code. So we've seen a couple of examples here, but you can always go back to the docs if you want to understand what options are available for that particular component. So for example, for the card component, and by the way, you have a nice simulator here that you can click on Android and see how it looks on iOS, and it's the same for all the other components. As you scroll down for the card component, for example, you'll see not only code examples, but you'll also see options. What are the stuff that you can do with that particular component? What are the options for a particular property or attribute for a specific element within the component? So all the details to implement that specific component into your project are here. So usually the way I would do this as a developer, I would first copy and paste the code from the kitchen sink myself. So for example, for card, I would take this specific piece of code, and then I would probably go into the docs and take a look at what stuff that I can do with that particular component to see how I can customize it to my own needs. Next, I want to show you the resources available to you as you develop your application, because sometimes, as I will repeat many times in this course, you will get stuck as you develop your application, or sometimes not. Obviously, if you don't, then all the best to you. But if you are stuck somewhere, these are the resources to help you. Again, you have the forum. And this is a nice addition to the resources that NativeBase has. If you have any questions for a problem that you're facing, or if you want to get some help into building your next application with NativeBase, this is the place to go. The forum is probably your best resource. The second resource that you can use, again, is the GitHub repo. If you face any bugs or issues with your code, this is the place to go. Again, like I've mentioned before, the issues is your best place to report any bugs that may be in the code. And again, this is a great place to have access to the original developers or the people that contribute to that repo. Final but not least, something that is becoming more and more popular for developers is that there's a Slack community for NativeBase. So if you click on it, you're able to request to be invited to the NativeBase Slack channel. And obviously, you'll have access to people to chat and discuss the NativeBase if you're encountering any issues. So now that we've explored NativeBase, a great starter kit for your React Native project, let's explore forms. In the next video, we'll take a look at a library aimed at forms in React Native.